Today we will see a new topic on regional planning, and that is types and levels of regional planning. Types and levels of regional planning. So till now we have seen various types of regional planning, or till now we have seen what is a regional planning, what do we mean by region, what is planning, etc. So now let us see what are the various types and the levels of regional planning. Okay, so when we say about, first we need to know about the various tiers or the levels of regional planning. So what are the various tiers or levels of regional planning? In the previous lecture, we had seen about the various levels of regions. So based upon that, the various tiers of levels of regional planning can be macro regional planning when we are planning for the entire country or for a huge region. It can be meso-regional planning, it can be micro-regional planning, and it can be local planning. Now, I have already told you these various terms. What is macro, what is meso, what is micro-region, and what is local level regions. So I have already told you all those things. So when you plan for each of these spatial context, that becomes that level of regional planning. Now, regarding the types of regional planning, what are the various types of regional planning? Now, these are the various types of regional planning. First of all, it is temporal. We can divide the various types of regional planning into these following types. What are the types as you are seeing over here? It is temporal. It can be according to the program content. It can be organizational angle, according to purpose, according to the level, and on the emphasis or non-emphasis on social aspects. So when we say temporal, it can be again subdivided into short-term and long-term. When we say program content, it can be again subdivided into economic and development. So these are the various subdivisions of each of these types which you are seeing on the screen. So you can go through each of these types and we will see the detail about each of these types now. Now, when we say about this short-term temporal planning, now temporal planning can be of two types. The one is the short-term temporal planning, and the another one is the long-term temporal planning. So, what is the short-term temporal planning? Now, short-term, as the name suggests, obviously it is for a smaller period of a time, and that kind of planning is generally done to solve certain pressing problems. If there are certain immediate problems which needs immediate attention, so those problems won't require any long term large scale changes in the society. They won't require any large scale changes in the economic conditions of the society. They require to be addressed immediately, so they can be used to increase the production and maybe the employment opportunities of a certain area, of a certain place. So for that, we need short-term planning. And generally, it is seen that these kinds of plans are done to meet the targets of the long-term planning. So these are the annual plans. So that means in long-term planning, when there is a long-term plan, so for long-term planning, we generally subdivide this into various short terms. When there is a long-term plan, for example, the 5-year plans, that 5-year plans will have to be subdivided into annual plans, so that every year the goal that is set for every year can be fulfilled, so that ultimately the 5-year plan can be fulfilled. Now, just the opposite is the long-term plan. This is also called perspective plan. Here, we are not changing we do not see any social or structural or institutional change. But here, it aims at institutional or structural change. Because this aims at what? This aims at achieving certain socio-economic goals of the society. Here, we do not require to change the socio-economic goals. Whatever goals has been set, we need to work according to that in short term. Here, what we do in long term, we actually set the goals. So try to understand. Here, we are setting the goals in long term. To set the goals, what we are doing, we are making the suitable changes. But in short term, we are not setting any goals. Goals have already been set by long term. So we do not need to change any social economic structure. What we are doing is that whatever goal has been set, we are working towards fulfilling of those goals. So if there is a 5-year plans are the long term goals. So the long term goals, to achieve those long term goals, what we are doing, we are dividing that 5 year into annual plans, because we know if that each of these annual plans is fulfilled, our ultimate objective of the 5-year plan will be fulfilled. Then comes, according to program content, it is economic. So according to economic, this is suited for the developed economies, or for the developed countries, or for the western countries. I have already told you what are the features of the developed economies. In these kinds of planning, capital and infrastructure is already present in that economy, in that nation, in that developed economy. Capital and infrastructure is already present to make the suitable changes, to make the suitable planning. But in developmental planning, this is economic, developmental planning is for the developing countries. This is for the developed, this is for the developing countries. Here, just the opposite. Here, already capital and infrastructure is already present. But here, what happens? Here, the capital and infrastructure, or whatever is required, these are either very weak or these are non existent. This is a more comprehensive type of planning. And here, we require to do some structural changes in the economy. Why structural changes we require to do over here? Because the economic, whatever infrastructure or the capital, these things are non-existent, or it is very weak. That is why, to facilitate the growth of the national economy, we need to have some structural changes. So for example, the social planning is included in developmental planning. Okay, so next we have the organizational angle, which is the imperative and the indicative planning. So, in the organizational context, when it is imperative planning, what happens over there? We require to do some economic decisions are made through some central planning. So, like under imperative planning, whatever is made, whatever economic decisions are made, that is made through this, that is through central planning. And this is not a, over here it is a market based planning, but this is not a market, not based upon market system. Why? Because the control over whatever is the resources, available resources in the country, that control is undertaken by the state. So since control has been taken by the state and not any private entrepreneurs, so what happened? The resources are allocated in such a way, whatever available resources are there, that is allocated in such a way that production becomes maximum. And who are the beneficiaries? The people are the beneficiaries for this. The general public is the beneficiary. And because the control on the available resources is exercised by the state, so welfare of the nation is maximized, or this gets priority. And there is absence of private property competition, etc., or any profit motive of industrialist. Because why? Because they do not exercise control over the available resources. These the various entrepreneurs, etc., they cannot exercise any control. All the ownership is vested on the nation. So you can think of a socialist country, or the erstwhile USSR. So those where right now we do not have this kind of an imperative planning right now, because generally the economy is both right now in a public and private. Then we have the indicative planning. This is found in the capitalist countries. The best example is US. And of course, in mixed economies, so mixed economy is like India. In India, everything is not under private ownership, or everything is not under public ownership. Like, for example, Indian Railways, it is under public ownership or government ownership. We also have the banking system. Some of it is owned by government, some of it is owned by the various entrepreneurs. various forms. Next, we have then we have this indicative planning where it is in a mixed economy, mixed sort of economy. So this involves a middle path of planning mechanism. Why middle path? Because obviously because it is a mixed economy. It do not have the essence of a fully capitalist society. It neither has the essence of a fully public society, public activities. So this is a indicative planning is what we find right now, because this kind of planning is non-existent, almost non-existent, because of that kind of society, capitalist socialist society, wherein all the institutions, only the private properties, I mean, only this economy is vested with the public property or vested with nation, that generally is not found these days. Then we have the sectoral planning under the purpose. Generally, this is the most common today, which is designed to develop the various sectors of the economy. So, what are the various sectors of the economy? For example, the agriculture sector, or for example, the industry sector, or transport sector, or power, etc. So, these are the various sectors of the economy. Are when we try to plan for these sectors, that can be planned either individually or simultaneously. That is called a sectoral economy. So for this sectoral planning, so for this, what happens? The targets for each sectors are fixed, and according to that target, whatever has been fixed, the plans are formulated according to that. Next is a spatial planning. So you see the word space over here again. So when we speak of the word space, that means when planning activity is done by on a spatial context, or the planning activity is done in such a way when we plan for the space available, that is called a spatial planning. So these are the various examples of spatial planning. And here we see that each sphere restricts itself to whatever action it has been delineated to. So if we have a town planning, then obviously that those planners won't go and plan for maybe the whole of the country. So if that is country planning, then those planners won't go and plan for a specific residential area. So we have these types of spatial planning. Then we have the various levels. According to levels, what are the various types of planning? First and foremost, we have the single level planning. So, what do we mean by a single level planning? When the decision or the planning is made by us at the national level. So when it is by only by the national level, that is a single level. A single level is constituting or formulating the plans, and that is a national level. So in the single level, when we say about national level decisions or formulations or plan are made on a national level, so what can we say? That this is a centralized process. So this single level planning is also called as a centralized planning. And here, because it is a centralized planning, the plans are formulated in this national level. So when do this lower, the second in step, when are they involved? So the lower levels are involved only at the implementation stage. So the formulation and the decisions are made by the center, and then the implemented, because those are these plans are made for which, for what? These plans are made for the lower territorial levels, maybe for the various regions, maybe for the various states. So these has to be implemented. So these plans are implemented. When it is the implementation stage, then only the lower levels are involved. So this is the example when plans are formulated by the planning commission or the Niti Aayog, etc. Then we have the multi-level planning. So in the multi-level planning, the national territory is divided into small territorial units. Now these territorial units are what may be based upon the size of the country or the administration or the various geographical or cultural settings, etc. So here we see there is direct participation of the people in the planning process. And here every region, because in multi-level, it is divided into various regions. So every region is a system over here. And every system is a part of this multi-level planning. Here, because every system, every region is a part, not only during implementation stage, but directly from the start. So it is much more effective form of planning. And so this is also called decentralized or grassroots level planning, like the various district plans. So in district plan, each and every district is involved, right from plan formulation to implementation. So this is the difference between multi-level and single level. One is centralized, one is decentralized. Okay, so that means in a single, what is the basic difference of a single level and a multi-level? So in a single level, it is the state, it is a center, it is done at the national level, and in the multi-level, various levels are involved. What are the various levels? The various territorial units. Here in a single level, it is divided, the plan is formulated, the decisions are made at the central level, but the implementation stage, only the lower levels are involved. In a multi-level, from everything from plan formulation, like from the problem identification to plan formulation to decision making and implementation, for everything the various levels are involved. So that is why it is known as the grassroots level also. Next is, what are we emphasizing on? Are we emphasizing on the social aspects, or we are not emphasizing on the social aspects? So based upon that, that is normative or systematic planning. So in a normative, it is less emphasis is given on the social and the institutional dimensions. So this examines 5 groups of problems which are given over here. So, but just the opposite, because here there is less emphasis on the social and institutional dimension, we find quite the opposite approach over here in the system planning. Here, more emphasis is given on the social aspects and the various operational aspects. So, these are the various elements of social planning. So, in normative planning, whereas physical planning is an example of normative planning, where we are not much concerned in a physical planning about the social aspects. But in a system planning, where we are concerned with the social aspects, it is an example is financial planning, because finance is for whom? Finance is for the society, for the people. So that is system planning. Next, we have some other types of planning, which are comprehensive planning, specialized planning, and detailed planning. So, in a comprehensive planning, what we do over here in most of these plans which I'm saying right now, comprehensive or specialized or detailed, you will find links of these plans with the earlier explained plans. Like in a comprehensive planning, examples are national plans or regional plans. So you can find links of this in the single planning or the multi-level planning. So basically, the types of plannings has been explained in the previous slides. So these are also certain terms which are also used. But again, as I'm saying, that these terms, you can easily link them to the earlier explained types of plannings. So in a comprehensive planning, the policies along with the goals and objectives are what to guide the economic, physical, and the social development of the territory. Then we have the specialized planning, which are done for some specialized schemes for some special for some maybe any important like for any special plans has been given. Like for example, you can say the maybe the sectoral planning. So sectoral planning can again be an example of specialized planning, because for here any special problem, any special thing, any special particular type of problem has been they try to solve that particular type of problem. So the target is fixed. So based upon the target, based upon that special problem, based upon that one and only problem, we have this specialized problem. So you can also say that specialized planning is an example of short-term planning. Specialized planning also, because in short-term planning also, what we do is that in short-term planning, if there is some pressing problems, we try to solve that problem. So similar goes for the specialized planning. Then comes the detailed planning. So the detailed planning, this is implemented at this local level, or for the development of the underdeveloped territories, or in particular residential pockets, these are done, or for developing the areas which are under strict control, for example, the inner city or the historical areas. So for that, we go for detailed planning. Apart from this, you might hear the term interregional and interregional planning. inter and intra-regional planning. In one of my earlier class also, I had mentioned about this inter and intra-regional planning. But intra-regional planning, they are not actually types of planning. They are various approaches to planning. So I won't be dealing with inter and intra-regional planning in this present class. In the next class, we will see about those approaches and some various other aspects of regional planning.